5:30 and a quorum is present, so I will call this meeting of the Madison Plan Commission of October 2nd to order. First, we will get some information from our technical facilitator. Jesse?
All right, welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which their hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After all registrants speak, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse. First up is communications disclosures and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any disclosures or recusals? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I just want to disclose for agenda item 2 that this proposed change has the potential to impact the view where I live, but it won't impact my vote in any way. I just wanted to disclose that. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else? Seeing no raised hands, we'll move on. Next is public comment, and I don't see any registrants for public comment. So, okay. Moving on then to minutes. We have minutes of the September 7th special meeting and September 18th regular meeting. Are there any additions and or corrections to the minutes? Alder Burrish, did you have a correction to the minutes?
Oh, no, Chair, I'm sorry. I can't correct the minutes, obviously, because I'm not on the committee. But I did register for public comments because I just wanted to make sure that, the issue that was coming forth on this in my district were addressed. That we were able to ask questions and whatnot.
So,
I think I registered on Saturday.
okay, so are these agenda items like 11, 12, 13, those?
Let me just pull the agenda. If you just give me a second, or you could come back. I'll just pull the agenda right quick. It wasn't.
The
It's
East Washington Avenue?
East Washington Avenue, and then also there is something right on it's on the north side. I don't have it on the top of my head. It's so much
Okay.
information.
Well, we will definitely get to those agenda items and take
Okay.
up any comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to the minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion to approve? And we'll take them both up together since there are no. Moved by Commissioner Mendez, seconded by Commissioner Spencer. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Upcoming meetings. There are regular meetings on Monday, October 30th, November 13th, 27th, and those are at 5:30, virtual meetings. And then there's a special meeting on Thursday, December 7th. Okay, next we will move on to the consent agenda. Commissioner Spencer, did you have something you wanted to share? please go ahead.
Yeah, I was not here for the September 18th meeting, so I was actually trying to abstain from voting. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you might need to get a new motion and second on that.
Okay. Could we have another second then, okay, seconded by Commissioner Solheim. And then we will come to a vote on that, and I will assume unanimous consent except for the abstention by Commissioner Spencer, unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion does pass. Thank you, Commissioner Spencer. Next is the consent agenda. It's a custom of the Plan Commission to remove from the agenda those items on which the staff believes an application has had sufficient review to warrant approval with all of the conditions placed upon it by the various city departments, on which the applicant accepts those conditions, and there are no individuals who have registered to speak in opposition to the item. So these are placed on the consent agenda along with any referrals, and they are addressed at the beginning of our meeting. Items to be considered on the consent agenda include items 3, 4, 5, 6, and then for referral, 9 and 10. And then for the consent, items 15, 16, and 17. Here. Are there any, do any of the commissioners wish to pull any of these off of the consent agenda? Seeing no raised hands, I will read each of those then into the record. Agenda item 3, Legistar 79327, located at 2102 Darwin Road, District 12. Consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence. Agenda item 4, Legistar 79525, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 2202 Darwin Road from Planned Mobile Home Park District to Suburban Employment District, again, District 12. Agenda item 5, Legistar 79328, approving a certified survey map of property owned by B&G Real Estate, LLC, and Opportunities, LLC, located at 2102 and 2202 Darwin Road, District 12. Agenda item 6, Legistar 79329, located at 2102 through 2202 Darwin Road, consideration of a conditional use in proposed suburban employment district for auto rental to allow construction of an auto rental business on lot 2 of a related CSM. And then for referral, items 9 and 10 referred to a future meeting, no date specified, pending a recommendation by the Urban Design Commission. So again, agenda item 9, Legistar 78634, agenda item 10, Legistar 78635. I see that Alder Burris again has her hand raised. Alder Burris, did you have something that you wanted to comment on?
Yes, thank you so much. So for 3, 4, 5, and 6, maybe I can just reach out to staff on that. I'm sorry, was that 6 that was included on that? Just a second. Yeah, but that's why I had registered to vote, because I'm not sure that, everybody knows what's going on with that project or not. So I just wanted to make sure. I don't know if they had, if they had any meetings, what they were supposed to do, because, I'm new in the district, so.
So are you saying that you want those taken off of the consent agenda?
I would like to just find out what's going on with them. So if that entails taking it off, yes. Just a quick summary would be great from staff.
Okay, yeah.
But I can't do that
Heather?
because I'm not one of the members.
Heather?
Yes, thank you, Chair Zellers and Alder Burris. These are parcels that are in District 18, Alder Miadzie's district on the north side on Darwin Road, where it meets Packers Avenue. And happy to discuss either in this forum or at a later date with you, whatever you prefer.
Okay, and so I appreciate that. When I was looking at it, it said, if we're talking about item number 3, 4, 5, and 6, it might have been a mistake that it says District 12. I see on 3, it says District 12. I see on 4, Darwin Road rezone says District 12. I see on 5, is approving the certified survey map, District 12, and 6. Now, I did look it up and think, oh, right where it is.
So could you clarify, Heather, are those in 12 or 18?
I believe those are in District 18. We've been working closely with Alder Miadzie there, so that must be a mistake on the Plan Commission agenda. My apologies.
Okay.
No problem. That's why I haven't heard anything about it.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So then we will leave those on the consent agenda since they are in District 18, and hopefully that can be corrected, Heather. Thank you, Alder Burris.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. And then going back, agenda items 9 and 10 to be referred, no date specified. Agenda item 9 is Legistar 78634. 10 is 78635. Then the next item on the consent agenda, agenda item 15, Legistar 79546, located at 1915 and through 1917, South Stoughton Road, District 16, consideration of a conditional use in the Industrial Limited District for general manufacturing to allow packaging and processing of alcohol beverages. Agenda item 16, Legistar 79550, located at 505 South Gammon Road, District 19, consideration of a conditional use in the Commercial Center District, for a vehicle access sales and service window to allow a general retail business to be converted into a bank with vehicle access sales and service window. Agenda item 17, Legistar 79551, located at 617 West Lakeshore Street, District 13. Consideration of a demolition permit to demolish the street-facing facade of a single-family residence. Could I have a motion on the consent agenda? Commissioner Solheim?
I move approval of the consent agenda and the referral items noted.
Thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Mendez. And we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the consent agenda passes unanimously. Next on the agenda, we will move to agenda item 2, Legistar 79845, amending section 33.24, 15, E, 12 of the Madison General Ordinances to update development standards within Block 2B of Urban Design District number 8 in District 6. And we will hear about this from staff member Kevin Furco. Kevin?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of the Plan Commission. I'm going to do a real quick overview of the ordinance, and then we'll be around for questions after the public hearing. Just to note that before you this evening is a text amendment to Urban Design District 8. I think before we go any further, I guess I want to do a little bit of table setting about Urban Design District 8, as this is an ordinance that is primarily implemented and enforced by the Urban Design Commission and not the Plan Commission. Just note, Urban Design District 8 is one of 8 overlay districts that exist throughout the city. that are largely located in high profile or gateway corridors to the city and provide additional development standards. Urban Design District 8 is among arguably the most prescriptive of these districts. The way Urban Design District 8 is constructed, it's actually divided into 18 blocks that are further divided into different sub-blocks. And so there's very specific development regulations there. As noted in the staff report, there have been project-specific amendments done in UDD 8 before, largely because of some of the specificity of the district. Urban Design District 8 itself was adopted in 2009 by the City Council, shortly after the adoption of the Capital Gateway Corridor Plan. It was one of the key implementing efforts from an urban design standpoint for that effort. Also, just note about Urban Design District 8. The specific standards for the blocks include heights, heights, setbacks, and setbacks that are specific to each of those subblocks. Also note with Urban Design District 8, there is provisions for bonus stories. And again, these bonus stories are under the purview of the city's Urban Design Commission. And I wanted to just make a distinction here. The Plan Commission deals with excess height requests from time to time as a conditional use. For the zoning code, there isn't an upper level of the number of stories. There's standards that the Plan Commission needs to find met. Urban Design District 8 is a bit different the way it's constructed, that there are height caps in terms of how many bonus stories can be requested. So just wanted to note that as a distinction because I think it's part of the ordinance here that that you're asked to act on this evening. So talk just a little bit about the ordinance that's before you tonight. There are two primary components. The first component is changing the allowable changing the allowable number of bonus stories. As it's currently constructed, Urban Design District 8 allows for 8 stories as the base height. That isn't changing with the ordinance. But what the ordinance is doing is going from two bonus stories, which is what is allowed today, and it provides a methodology to either request 4 bonus stories or 6 bonus stories, depending on if certain criteria are met. The way it's established to achieve a 4-story bonus, there really isn't a change to the underlying methodology that the Urban Design Commission would use. Essentially, the Urban Design Commission need to find that there's sufficient public value, those are the words in the code, and that the development would need to demonstrate that a series of amenities or features have been provided. In this case, they could provide one amenity from a list of more substantial ones, or a combination of smaller amenities from a smaller list. And so with the proposed amendment to do a 4-story, that methodology isn't changing. But under the proposed amendment to do a larger 6-story amenity, 6-story bonus, additional amenities would be required. And the way the draft amendment is proposed, you would need to do one of the larger items from the first list, and then a combination of 3 items from the second list. Again, it doesn't specify which of those 3 are chosen, but it does provide a bit of a higher bar in terms of what needs to be met to do the higher bonus. That's the first component. The second component of the ordinance adds another consideration that can be used in combination with that smaller list. It provides an affordability component that could be considered both for the subject property and other properties within the district. And that is an affordability component. It's structured as an existing affordability bonus is allowed for the bigger category, but this is a smaller category that's intended to be used with additional items. And it would require that 5% of the total number of units be restricted for affordable housing at a minimum of 60 to 80% of the county median income. Again, that could be used with a combination of other items to achieve a bonus story. Just wanted to provide a little bit more information on some of the context here for the district, and just note that as far as Urban Design District 8, this is, as noted in the staff report, this amendment is being proposed in response to a specific development proposal, and links to that were provided in your application materials. Again, that item is not before the Plan Commission, and there's not an application before you, but this code amendment would be necessary to facilitate that development as proposed. Now, just want to note in terms of some nearby projects, in terms of how it relates to context, This site is Block 2B in East Washington, the UDD 8. It's adjacent to Block 2C. This subject site is on East Washington Avenue at the corner of East Washington and Blount. And east of this site is the Constellation Building, which was the first large redevelopment as part of the Capital Gateway corridor. And then in the following block is the Galaxy Building. Both of those two developments did require amendments to Urban Design District 8 to be developed. Just from contextual purposes, the Constellation Building, which is in the same block, was changed, and it was approved with a 4-story bonus. So it's a 12-story building, and it is approximately 147 feet in height, not counting the mechanicals. And then the Galaxy Building is the full block development in the following block that has Festival Foods. That development includes a 14-story development and the maximum height of 158 feet, which was similar to the concept that was presented at the Urban Design Commission for this block. And just to note that development was capped at having 15% of the block area that could be at that upper top limit. So again, that's just some of the historic developments that have been approved in this block, and some of the changes that have been approved to UDD 8 over the last many years since it was adopted. I did want to note that there is a comment noting concerns on this request, and that was linked in Legistar. Wanted to note that that's been received and up on Legistar. And finally, in conclusion, I just wanted to note that this change is specific to Urban Design District 8. It doesn't change any of the Plan Commission's protocols for reviewing height in the district or conditional use considerations for excess height. It would primarily be changing the factors that the UDC uses to consider that. It is before the Plan Commission because the code does require that changes to urban design districts do require an advisory recommendation from the Plan Commission. I would also just note that this doesn't alter the maximum height established for the Dane County Airport, that height restriction also is not affected by the change here. So with that overview, I just wanted to note that staff is available to answer questions after the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. We do not have any registrants wishing to speak, but I will open the public hearing. We do have some who would be available to answer questions. Chris Howden, East Johnson Street, Madison, in support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Matt Long, Broadway, Madison, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. And Carol Schaefer, Olin Avenue, Madison, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions, representing Willow Partners. Are there questions of any of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I'll close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Before we do that, I see that Alder Rummel, the sponsor of the ordinance and the alder for the district, is here. Alder Rummel, did you wish to speak? And if so, now or later?
I could say a few words now. Thank you, Chair Zellers. I just want to thank everyone for considering this amendment, and also we should disclose, just for the record, the people who I'm going to mention know it, but there's 2 former alders on this panel who served the area in question and have been involved in various previous decisions about developments. That's Patrick and Liddell. So obviously there's some long history here on the Plan Commission with knowledgeable people about the planning for this area and what's happened in the area. And just one more thing before we just get to your questions and comments. I support this amendment. It's not like I set out to say, oh, let's add more height, but I thought when Chris Howden and the Will Partners team came to me and proposed a 14-story building and indicated that the Urban Design District 8 would need an amendment, I thought, well, let's see, and let's create some standards that raise the bar. As Kevin mentioned, there is the sufficient public benefit question, And so for me, the big public benefit I hope to provide in my term in office is more affordable housing. So I worked on trying to come up with language for that additional element in the section. I don't know if it's II or 2 or however you refer to those things in legalese, but so we worked on an amendment, and it's not as robust as the common things that the council may vote on, which is, getting at 60% of area median income. But what really struck me about this situation is not all developers have the skill set to do affordable housing where they're applying for tax credits and know how to put together a package with the various sources. So this seemed to me that to create something that was something that a developer who's like, that's not my wheelhouse, could then maybe find a way to provide some more affordability. So I think that's what really motivated me, and changing the standard for the 6 bonus, not just to have, something from column A or a combo from column B, but to have something from column A or I technically, and 3 things, not or, but and 3 things from column II. Raise the bar enough that I thought, given some of the trade-offs and concerns, maybe, like the impacts of a taller building, it might be worth considering. And that's what's before you today. And I'll stop now and, maybe chime in later. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. This is probably for Kevin. Kevin, could you just explain to us how some of this applies only to the sub block in question, but some of it also applies to all of UDD8?
Sure.
And so which portion it would apply to all of UDD8?
Sure. Happy to answer that. The part that applies only to the block in question, again, the 700, the western 2/3 of the 700 block, is the height change, the change in the number. So right now, as it's written, it's allowed 8 stories with the potential for a bonus of 2 stories. Just on that specific block, if this amendment were allowed to be approved on that specific block, there could be a request for either 4 or 6 bonus stories as allowed. Again, that change is limited to that block. The change that could be more widely applied to the rest of the district is that second affordable housing component. That could be a factor that could be used in this development or other developments. As Alder Rummel had mentioned, this is added to the list of smaller items that would need to be combined. So this affordability factor would need to be combined with other elements for that to be a valid way to get bonus stories. But that could be applied to this site or any of the sites within East Washington Avenue as part of the rationale or criteria to achieve a bonus story.
Thanks. And the portion of Part 1 that currently exists that references a slightly more robust affordability potential bonus will remain. So a developer could still use that existing Part 1 affordability component.
That is correct. Yeah, that is not being removed. That could be a determinant for a project if somebody wanted to use that as the criteria to apply for bonus stories.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Mendez.
Thank you, Chair. So, Kevin, my question is, why don't we apply this to all of UD8, the additional stories? That would make sense, but just would like to understand why not.
And that's a good question. That's been one that's discussed. We're in the midst and kind of in the early phases of a holistic look at of the standards in the urban design district, and it's actually an effort it's a multi-year effort. And it's ongoing. We're in the first phase right now. That might be wrapped up. That was intended to be some smaller administrative cleanups. And then in the coming years, we'd be doing more substantial, holistic looks at the different districts. The districts are all structured a little bit different and have different considerations. And so that had been a much, I guess, longer term, more holistic effort to kind of revisit that. That seemed to be a much longer development to kind of look at the entire district, and it's something that is anticipated to be looked at within the next couple of years. But this one, which was again tied to a specific proposal, was just looking at this block as we've done for a couple of other, a few other sites within UDD 8.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. Just to go off that question, Kevin, would that review include a review, I assume, of the baseline heights? I'm just thinking, this one being the 8+2, the 8 is an awkward height. It's very rare that you're going to get an 8-story building for reasons we've touched on before, just in terms of building type. So wondering if that would be part of the discussion as well.
It certainly could be. We haven't had any sort of discussions about, how much would change or what the scope would be, but that would certainly be within the scope of what would be looked at in a couple of years in terms of revisiting that for, it could be as broad as changing, as opposed to going from a, block by block series to make a more uniform standard, or it could just be revisiting the specific standards for any of the given blocks. So I would say it's on the table. We just haven't gotten to that point of the study.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff? Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you, Chair. I think you answered the question when Heck asked. So the current standards that we have today for bonus high are based on a percentage of affordability. So I'm a little bit confused here. Are we replacing that entire policy with this policy for this block, or are they still require affordability? Because I see it on the sections 1 and 2 as choices, but looking at the combination, I could actually master this to combine no affordability. So does this replace the existing one?
To note, it right now it doesn't replace. Right now, applicants have the desire to pick from the different lists, and they can do a combination so long as they pick the required number of amenities. It doesn't have to be affordability today, and with this amenity, it doesn't have to be an affordable component. This adds a new affordability component that could be considered, but it doesn't. It's not. Affordability isn't required for UDD 8 today, and that wouldn't change for that. Again, it's among the options. I see Heather might have a question or a follow-up here. The other thing I was going to note was that this is different from, as a plan commission, you've seen a few requests in the downtown area that we've recently changed. There's a height bonus provision in just the downtown districts that is solely for affordability. That doesn't change at all. That's a completely separate consideration. This is only for this property within Urban Design District 8, which is outside of that downtown area. So this has no impact on that downtown provision that was recently approved.
Heather, did you have something to add? No? Okay. Anything else, Alder Figueroa Cole?
That would be all. Thank you. I would just want to, that last statement about the downtown is just for the very core downtown. I was confused by that a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I would be looking for a motion. Commissioner Solheim.
I will move that the Plan Commission recommends approval of the UDD 8 text amendment.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Spencer. We will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes. Thank you. Next are items 7 and 8. They are related and we'll consider them in one public hearing. And following the public hearing, the Plan Commission shall make separate findings and motions on each agenda item. Agenda item 7, Legistar 79526, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 248 East Hill Parkway from Planned Development District to Traditional Residential Consistent 3 District in Alder District 16. Agenda item 8, Legistar 79326, approving the preliminary plat and final plat of third addition to Reston Heights on property addressed as 248 East Hill Parkway, again in Alder District 16. And we do have registrants on this, or a registrant. Jane, I'll open the public hearing. Jane Duffston, Wyalusing Drive, Madison, neither support nor opposed, and wishing to speak, representing Reston Heights Homeowners Association. Jane, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Jane Duffstein, and I'm the volunteer president of the Reston Heights HOA, part of Alder District 16. Regarding items 7 and 8, 248 East Hill Parkway is part of Outlot 5 on our HOA plat map. So these buildings and or residents will be paying members of our Reston Heights Homeowners Association, and therefore the lots will need to abide by the deed restrictions of the RH HOA. The HOA would also like clarity on who will be billed for the stormwater management outlot. And if possible, I'd like to receive future information about the project at the HOA PO box. We're at restonheights.com is our website, and I'd be happy to connect with whomever makes sense to. Thank you.
Thank you. So Heather, can you make sure that the Homeowners Association gets the information that has been requested?
I think what I'll be able to do is connect the applicant with the homeowners association.
Perfect.
So that
Okay.
the city won't continue to ensure
Okay.
connections over time, but we can connect them at this point.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
Other registrants, Brian Arcand, Voges Road, Madison, support, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Are there questions of either of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I'll close the public hearing. Are there questions at all of staff? Seeing no raised, yes, Alder Field.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question for staff. I'm wondering if the city expects to go through this process of converting or rezoning from PD to other zoning districts elsewhere in this area under this record neighborhood development plan. And I'm asking because I know a large portion of Reston Heights as well as the Grandview Commons area are PD now.
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say that it's a complicated scenario to get a rezoning from planned development to occur once there are already residents there, because everyone who is in that zoning district needs to be a party to that request for rezoning. So in this particular case, this is a vacant property at this point that, due to a new wetland delineation, has a more buildable area than it did in the past. And so I think it was the easiest path forward for this applicant to seek a rezoning of a stretch of this property to construct homes in a conventional zoning district, the TRC3 zoning district. I think we would, as staff, we would certainly welcome rezoning requests from plan development to our conventional zoning districts, which are far better today at kind of matching the development that as it's occurred over the past couple decades. But like I said, it's pretty complex when there are, dozens, if not hundreds of owners sometimes in a planned development, to get them all on the same page and, to get them requesting a rezoning to a conventional district. Alders may request rezoning to conventional districts, and then it becomes a matter of examining all of the, getting down in the weeds and examining all of the details about the setbacks and the as-built conditions, and making sure that the conventional district would still work for a lot of these areas zoned planned development. So honestly, we would welcome the opportunity, but sometimes it's a little bit more complicated than, sometimes the complications may outweigh the benefits of doing so.
Interesting and helpful. Thank you, Heather.
Yes, thank you very much, Heather, and thanks for the question, Alderfield. Any other questions of staff? Seeing none, I would be looking for a motion on agenda item 7 to change the zoning of property. Commissioner Solheim.
I'll move that the Plan Commission forwards the zoning map amendment to rezone a portion of 248 East Hill Parkway from PD to TRC3, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
And it is seconded by Alderfield. Commissioner Solheim, did you wish to speak to your motion? No. Okay. Any other discussion or comments? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Then next on our agenda are agenda items 11, 12, and 13, which are related and will be considered as one public hearing. Following the public hearing, the Plan Commission shall make separate findings and motions on each agenda item. And I will read those items into the record. Agenda item 11, Legistar 79331, located at 3100 East Washington Avenue, District 12. Consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a car sales facility. Agenda item 12, Legistar 79332, same location, consideration of a conditional use in the commercial quarter transition district for a multifamily dwelling with greater than 60 units to allow construction of a 5-story apartment building with 192 units. Agenda item 13, Legistar 79337, approving a certified survey map of property owned by LLS Enterprises LLC, same location, also District 12. Commissioner Solheim.
Do we still need a motion on number 8? This
plat? You're absolutely right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Solheim. So moving back, and then we will move forward. Commissioner Solheim, can you make a motion on that, please?
I'll move approval of the preliminary plat and final plat of the 3rd addition to Reston Heights on property at 248 East Hill Parkway.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Alderfield. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing none, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Thanks again, Commissioner Solheim. Appreciate that. Then we are back to agenda item 11, 12, and 13. And first, we will hear from staff member Colin Punt, who will describe this. Colin.
Yes, thank you, Chair Zellers. So Before the Plan Commission now is 3100 East Washington Avenue. The applicant is seeking approvals to demolish a former auto sales building in order to construct a 5-story residential building with 192 units on a single lot to be created by CSM. Staff believes that the standards for demolition permits and land divisions can be found met. Regarding the conditional use requests, staff have comments regarding standards 1 and 9, beginning with standard 9, that the project creates an environment of sustained aesthetic desirability. This proposal has been reviewed by UDC and has received initial approval with a number of conditions. It will need to return to UDC for final approval. Staff have also recommended a condition of approval to further improve the ground floor treatment of the building at the corner of East Washington and Melvin Court. Regarding standard 1, which states that the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. This site is within the oft-discussed 65 decibel day and night average sound level area per the F-35 environmental impact statement. In order to address the noise impacts on the site, which also include those from East Washington and Aberg Avenue, staff have provided a condition strongly encouraging noise attenuation to be included in the proposal. In the event that the city provides any financial support, the city could require that noise attenuation as part of the agreement for funding. And those strategies could be reviewed prior to the issuance of building permits and then inspected during construction by building inspection staff. On balance, staff does believe the conditional use standards can be found met. Staff does note that there was an addendum to the staff report posted today and emailed out to the commissioners that included recommended conditions of approval from the forestry section. The findings and the recommendations of the staff report did not change with that addendum. And then, as always, I will be available for questions following the public hearing.
Before we move to the public hearing, Colin, is there the second registrant for the developer, Nick, what's the last name?
Orthman.
I don't see that person, so we would have 2 then registrants for the developer.
I
believe so. I'm not seeing Nick Orthman registered either.
Okay. The developer wanted to pool the time, so it looks like we would have 6 minutes between Adam Templer and Stephen Rosendich. So I will open the public hearing, and the first registrant then, Adam Templer, 80th Street, Kenosha, representing Bear Development. Adam, you have up to 6 minutes.
Great, thanks everybody. And I think the other registrant from our team was Felipe, who's our architect, so he might be showing up as well as one of the registrants.
Okay, so did you wish to include him then in your pool?
Yeah,
time?
if that's possible, that would be great.
Yeah, that's fine, because you can have up to 3 people from your team. Okay, so then you would have 9 minutes among the 3 of you.
Great, I appreciate it. And Connor, are you able to share the presentation that we sent over earlier today?
Yeah, if Jesse could allow me to screen share.
All right, thank you. So I am Adam Templer with Bear Development. Along with me tonight, Nick Orthman is on. I'm not sure if he is registered. Stephen from Bear as well. Felipe is on. He's our architect from Engberg Anderson. And then Kevin Yeska is on from JSD. JSD is our civil and survey group on the project. So we appreciate city staff for all their assistance as we've moved through the process. We've been through a few different iterations on this project, working with city staff, as well as going through a few different UDC commissions. We've received some comments back from you all there and looking forward to the Plan Commission's comments tonight as well. A quick background on Bear. Bear is a full service real estate development firm, GC firm, and property management company. We're based in Kenosha. We've been around since the 1920s and have offices in Madison, Milwaukee, Chicago, and Jackson, Wyoming. What we're talking about tonight with 3100 East Washington is an affordable housing development. The entire development is funded with low-income housing tax credits. They're 4% non-competitive tax credits, and low-income housing and affordable housing is one of the specialties that we work on at Bear. Their most recent deal, affordable housing in Madison, is at 402 West Wilson that we are just under construction on now. Next slide, Colin. Next, just a quick overview of the development. It is, as was mentioned, 192 units. It's a combination of 86 one-bedroom units and 106 two-bedroom units. It's 5 stories over an underground parking facility. Our parking is a bit under 1-to-1, and we'll get into that in a bit more detail with some of the further site plans. But we have 142 stalls for 192 units. One of the comments that we heard from staff as we're working through this is to not overpark the facility. It's in a very convenient location with a new bus rapid transit stop that's outside of it. So we anticipate a fair amount of the residents in the development will not have cars. And also, it was mentioned by Colin, this being in the F35 zone, if you will. Strategically placing this with 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units, we don't anticipate this being a facility that is with large families. It's more targeted to the young professional and not families that have abundant amount of kids. Next slide. This gives a lay of the land a little bit as we look in either direction along East Washington. On the top slide, it's a little bit hard to see without being zoomed in, but you can see in either direction of East Wash. Best pictures maybe in the lower right where you can see the interchange along with East Wash. Next slide. This is a bit better feel for the development. The one thing to point out is that due to the location with the TOD overlay, there's a requirement that not more than 30% of the facade is a minimum of 20 feet setback from the curb. So that portion of the building that's very hugged up close to East Washington Avenue is where we've located a community space. There's a community room, management office, fitness, and that. So trying to focus those areas that are closer to the street. The portion that step back then does have units. In order to alleviate some of the noise concerns, we have gone through an effort both from the East Washington traffic noise, but also from the F35 went through the HUD straight calculation for noise to ensure that with the wall composition and window composition, we're lowering those interior noise levels below the HUD thresholds. So we've gone through those calculations at the Edinburgh to ensure that will be met. Next slide. This gives you a better idea of that portion that is hugged up close to East Washington. On the far right is a little outdoor patio that comes off of a lounge area. One of staff's comments was, it's a bit hard to see, but if you zoom in where it says signage, just to the right of that is a lounge area, and a staff comment was to increase some of the windows in that. We've done an initial study and are supportive of doing that, whether it's through larger windows or additional windows, but that's something that can certainly be addressed. There are also a few staff comments related to the ramp that goes in there to make sure that it's a finished concrete and provides concrete in that area rather than gravel. So again, supportive of those comments. Next slide. These give you a little bit of a feel for the building as we look through the next handful of slides. The areas that, again, are on the right of the screen are those community spaces. As we get to the left, the residential units are elevated 4 to 5 feet off of the sidewalk and step back a little bit to try to avoid some of the noise of East Washington. Next slide. Here's another view of it looking from East Washington. The interchanges to the bottom left of the screen here. We've been through, I think this was maybe round 4 or 5 of going through staff comments and UDC comments in order to come to an elevation of the building and setup of the building that was acceptable and supported by them. So using different materials, if not every unit has a balcony, but some balconies are used to break up the facades a bit. A lot of the comments that we received from UDC was to not get too busy with the exterior. So using more of a blocking technique with the different sections of the building rather than too much differentiation. Next slide. This is a view of the interior courtyard. One of the things that we strive for is with the 192 units, there is a public park that's nearby, but we wanted to have nice outdoor space for the residents as well. So I think of this slide and the next slide, you can see some of that outdoor space. There are a few different dog areas. There's an outdoor grilling area and seating area. If you go to the next slide. This gives a little bit of view. Can't see it in this picture, but to the right of where the trash can is there's an outdoor patio or an indoor community room that leads out to the outdoor patio. So some indoor-outdoor space for residents. And then around the corner from here is a dog run or have a convenient space for residents. Next slide. This gets in the materials a bit. As Colin mentioned, we will be going back to UDC to get a final sign off of the material palette, but focused here on using a lap siding as well as brick with an accent color. Felipe is on if there are specific questions about materials being used, but the intent is to use a fiber cement siding as long as and fiber cement panels and brick. Next slide. These are all probably a little bit too small to see, but this gives a better, has elevations called out as well with materials in each one. Next slide. Next slide. As mentioned at the beginning, this does contain a full underground parking facility. So we've tried to preserve as much of the green space on the first level for green space and not for parking. There is some outdoor parking, but the majority of parking for the facility is below grade. These would be assigned spots for residents, and we also have bike parking down in this area. It's in the upper left of the screen, so meeting the bike parking and then the EV stalls that are required as well. Next slide. Gives a little bit of idea of the floor plans. One of the comments, and I think it's 2 slides up, so get to it, but was to provide different access to Ridgeway. So if you go ahead, 2 more slides, I think it is. 1 more. So here's the landscape plan. And one of the comments, sorry, back 1 slide, please. One of the comments from the staff, and we weren't clear on the comments, so I wanted to get clarification on that tonight, was providing pedestrian access, curb and gutter along Ridgeway. We have 2 paths that lead to Ridgeway, but not a sidewalk that goes along Ridgeway. The main reason for that is because right at the end of the parking lot where it comes to those 2 dead ends, there's an existing string of arborvitae that we're trying to preserve. There's a big change in grade that goes from Ridgeway down to those parking areas. So in order to provide sidewalk along there, we would have the grades are very, very difficult, but we also have to remove a string of arborvitae. So we wanted clarification on if that was the intent or if the pathways that are shown there that come from the building out to Ridgeway were sufficient. Next slide. This is just a zoomed in version of the landscaped area. Again, trying to maximize our outdoor space here for the residents with a patio pergola grilling area up to the top of the screen. You can see an artificial grass area for a dog run. Again, looking to maximize space for the residents. I think that's the end of the slides. I know some of it was small, but hopefully you all have your PDFs
and that does
you can zoom in.
conclude your available time. So
Perfect timing.
Thank you. Yes. Then I want to turn Alder Latimer Burris has registered to speak, and I wanted to find out from her whether she wants to speak now or after the other registrants have spoken. Alder Burris?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to wait on it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Okay, the next registrant then is Angela Morgans, Melvin Court, Madison in support and wishing to speak. Angela, you have 3 minutes.
Sorry.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I had sent slides over to the registration. Would that be able to be pulled up now?
I will turn to Colin and hopefully he can pull those up.
Um,
I sent it to the meeting registration email.
oh, can you send them to pccomments@cityofmadison.com?
PDC, I'm
P-
sorry, just let me-
PC as in Plan Commission, PC comments at cityofmadison.com. That I believe that registration email is goes to IT and is not a checked email.
PC comment at what?
cityofmadison.com.
As you're getting that, I think I'm going to move on to another registrant, and then Angela will come back to you so that your
Perfect. Thank
slides
you.
come up immediately. Then, thank you.
Thank you.
The next registrant then is Marina Bolotnikova. Sorry, I'm undoubtedly pronouncing that incorrectly. Mary Street, Madison, in support and wishing to speak. And you will have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for providing this forum. So I'm a resident of Madison's East Side. I don't usually come to these meetings. I just wanted to express my strong support for this project. I'm not part of any local group that's advocating for the construction of this building. I'm just a normal person who feels strongly about how this will benefit our community for reasons that people on the Plan Commission are probably well acquainted with. This past May, the Cap Times reported that Madison in the last few years has had the fastest growing rent of any major city in the US. Rents have increased by about a third in 3 years, and Madison's housing shortage is dire and having a very perceptible impact on the many people trying to afford to live here, and more development of dense, transit-oriented, high-quality housing is exactly what Madison needs to fix our housing shortage and bring down housing costs and foster a vibrant urban life and meet climate goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next registrant is Treater Preston. Melvin Court, Madison, neither support nor opposed and wishing to speak. Treater, you have 3 minutes. Registrant is Treater Preston. Yes, Treater Preston, 3 minutes. Madison, neither support. Speak. Treater, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah. Hi, this is Treater Preston. And I would like to bring up the parking concern for the units. I know the developer.
Yes, Treater Preston, 3 minutes. Madison, neither support. We're getting some
And the developer
feedback.
mentioned that there were 142 parking stalls available for 192 units. And being a resident of the Carpenter Ridge neighborhood and living right off of Melvin Court, there is not enough space in the adjacent blocks to absorb a potential of 50 units that would have no parking.
Does that conclude your testimony?
And also, my other comments I would like to make are with the F-35s, that the material used is sufficient enough to make a place that has been determined to be uninhabitable habitable. Those are my two comments, and I would like the developer to comment on those, please, and what they're doing to address that.
Yes, thank you. If the Plan Commission has a question of the developer about that, we will hear that. Looping back to Angela Morgans. Angela, you have 3 minutes, and hopefully, Colin, can you bring up?
I have not received an email from Angela.
Okay.
Let me try sending that again then.
Okay, we'll come back again, Angela, to you. The next registrant is Bennett McIntosh, Mary Street, Madison, in support and wishing to speak. Bennett, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you, Planning Commission. Thanks to the developers for being here and sharing their thoughts on the project. And thanks to all the elder folk and neighbors who are here as well. I registered in support of this project. I think one thing to remember about a project like this. So I live a little closer into town along the East Washington corridor. I commute to work without the use of a car. I take the bus every day, and many of my neighbors do the same. I think with the bus rapid transit, I think that it's obvious many more folks along the East Washington corridor will continue to do that. So I don't know kind of what numbers have gone into the developer's study for that exact parking ratio, but I'm hopeful and confident that the parking situation in the area will be reasonable. Many of the folks in my neighborhood do not use cars or need to park. I also wanted to make a comment on the noise. I think we've been talking about the noise for the residents of the planned building quite a bit, which I appreciate. But I think we should also note that 5-story building between the Melvin Court and other neighborhoods behind this development, between them and East Wash, well, it wouldn't do anything to reduce the F-35 noise, which is awful, and I wish we could do something about it. They're way too loud, even further south down here. But it will reduce traffic noise from East Washington, and that can be a huge advantage. I know for the neighborhoods along the isthmus that are developing, including the one we've talked about earlier in this meeting, as the taller development goes up along East Washington, it gets much quieter, even a block away from East Washington, and I think the neighbors can really appreciate that. So I hope that this development continues with the size and transit orientation that is proposed. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Bennett. Our next registrant is Nathan Morgans, Melvin Court, Madison, in support and wishing to speak. Nathan, you have 3 minutes.
Chair, there's no person in attendance by that name.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna read, well, I guess that's it then. Then we're back to Angela. Angela, hopefully you've gotten your material sent and you have 3 minutes.
I have sent them twice. Have you received them?
I have not received any emails from Angela.
Is it at pccomment@cityofmadison.com?
Yes, PC comments with an S after comment.
Yes, I have sent it. So I will just speak then, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I will be representing myself, Angela Morgans, and Nathan Morgans, my husband. I just wanted to address first off that in the plan of intent that the developer sent to Colin, one of the points it brought up is the surface parking lot is located inboard the parcel, and the building will screen its view from East Washington Avenue. The existing homes adjacent to the site at the intersection of Bridgeway Avenue and Melvin Court shield the view of the parking lot as well. The majority of off-street parking is provided below grade in the basement of the building. I love that the developer is hiding the parking from East Washington. However, I live at 814 Melvin Court, and I just wanted to address that. Another point that the developer brought up on to Colin was point number 6, landscaping. They had mentioned that the plans also call for the preservation of the existing trees along Bridgeway Avenue and the existing tree line with the neighboring parcels where possible. With that said, when you look at the developer's map, they are looking at taking the arborvitaes that are adjacent to my property down and replacing them. When doing that, looking at their map, there's a couple issues that I saw with that. The first thing is that we share a utility easement with this particular parcel. It's a telephone line. I have seen the telephone people come back and utilize this utility easement multiple times. At the last meeting, we had brought up the arborvitaes, and the developer said that they would have to cut the arborvitaes down that are about 20, 25 years old and about as tall, 25 to 30 feet tall, that they would cut them down and replace them. However, when you push that line back, that's going to be on the utility easement. And from my understanding, you're not able to plant a tree that would grow and cover those lines. I had pictures in the presentation so that everyone could see it. So I'm really sorry that you're not able to access that. I just wanted to make sure that we're doing everything we can to save the green space. One of the things that I had on the presentation was a picture of what the residents see when they're looking at my house and the neighborhood. Right now, they see this beautiful line of arborvitaes. If the developer cuts down these arborvitaes, then that means the housing is the residents of this development
Thank
are now
you.
going to be.
Thank you, Angela. That does conclude your available 3 minutes. We have 2 late registrants. The first is Ed Bloom, Melvin Court, opposed and wishing to speak. Ed, you have 3 minutes.
Ed, you're unmuted.
Go ahead, Ed.
Ed, you're unmuted on our end and your end. You may have like a mute button on your microphone or headset or whatever you're using that might be active. Looks like you are muted again. Now it's showing as unmuted. Ed, we're unable to hear you if you're speaking right now, and it does show that you're unmuted. I don't know if there's a volume that you can bring up or something.
Any luck?
There we go.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Ed. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I want to first address the F-35s. That area, that parcel or our entire neighborhood for that matter, the Air Force concluded was incompatible with residential use. And I think that that is wise advice because the F-35s will come over at 110 decibels or greater. That's like having a rock band in your backyard. I mean, they literally go over my backyard, and these folks will experience the same thing. 110 decibels is a little low. We've recorded 116 decibels even on a professionally installed sound meter in my backyard. That's the equivalent of a car horn blaring at 1 meter or a jet ski running through the yard. We have an navigation easement on our property, and I wonder whether this will also have an navigation easement. The developer should definitely consider that. Because it would affect the pricing of the property, perhaps, and the mitigation that the developer may attempt is not going to help for people who are outdoors. The outdoor patio will be possibly unusable when the 116 decibel flight goes over, and they go in 2s and 3s and 4s. So it's a pretty constant roar. The green space around it, that's pretty. You don't want to be walking when one of those jets goes over. So I'm opposed to the development of the site for residential use. If they want to put in, businesses of some sort or warehouses, that would be an appropriate use for the site, perhaps. Now, on traffic flow, I don't know whether this is because of the development or what, but I've believe the Elmside or Melvin Court will be blocked off for turns coming from the square toward Easttown. You will not be able to turn left on to Melvin Court. So you would go down to the next street and make a U-turn, or you would drive into the neighborhood. If you drive into the neighborhood and stay on Carpenter Street, that is a very uneven, irregular washboard street. It's very rough. It has, I think it's a Ridgeway or Carpenter, but there's no sidewalk, there's no curb and gutter, and you can park on both sides. So you're going to have a one-lane street to turn onto to get up to
Thank you.
Ridgeway.
That concludes your available time. The next registrant is Sandra Bloom, Melvin Court, opposed and wishing to speak. Sandra, you have 3 minutes.
I just muted. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm just going to follow up a little bit on the streets and
Sandra, wait. We're getting some feedback. Can you turn off whatever you have going in the back?
You're going to have 50 cars with no place to park. You have 192 units and 142 stalls. I don't know where those other cars are going to park, but there's no room at all on Melvin Court. And to follow up the previous speaker, it appears that because of bus rapid transit, Melvin Court will be shut off and we can no longer drive on Melvin Court, pushing all of the traffic down to Ridgeway. Ridgeway has no curb, no gutter. It's a very steep hill that doesn't get plowed in the winter. I don't have any idea where the cars are going to go. I think it's going to be an overload of cars in that area. And there's an additional apartment complex that's right behind the building that will go up, and they are already overflowing with parking. There's no more street parking. So I think the parking really needs to be considered again. And if you do this plan, you will have to redo Ridgeway Avenue because, as I say, there's no curb, no gutter. It's a washboard. You can't drive on it in the winter. It doesn't even get plowed. So I don't know how they're going to address that. That's my concern.
Thank you, Sandra. That concludes our available of the speakers who are registered to speak or available to answer questions. Are there questions of any of our registrants? Commissioner Shepard. Commissioner Shepard, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. For the developer, this pertains to the conditional use permit. Page 5, staff mentions again standard number 1 that the development will not be detrimental to the surrounding area. In your letter of intent, you list that you have a management plan. In your letter of intent, you just sort of mentioned that you have it, but you also mentioned that you have a complete management plan that is available upon request. Could you make that complete management plan available to staff? Can you put that as part of the record? In particular, I'm concerned with issues of safety, security, and also if the management plan includes something related to residents in terms of filing, complaints or getting, once again, communicating issues with management.
I think that would go to Adam Templer. Could we have Adam respond to that?
Yeah, this is so I just want to be clear on what the request is. Are you referring to the property management plan for the development, which would address?
Yeah, in your letter of intent, you say that you have a management plan, a complete management plan, and it is available upon request. I'm asking, can you just make that? I'm requesting that you make that available.
Sure, understood.
Okay.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that everything's in it that you're looking for. I heard you say safety, security. I know parking has been brought up several times, so make sure that that's included. Are there any other items specifically that you want to make sure?
Yeah, if there's something in there in terms of the ability for residents to communicate to management issues, how do they go about that?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, and just to clarify too, I think I said it probably got buried a little bit, but we have our property management division who will be managing this facility as well. So the development, the construction, and the property management is all in-house with Bear. So I will get that plan over. If there's anything missing from it that you're looking for, happy to supplement that for you.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shepard. Anything else that you have, Commissioner Shepard? No, it looks like not. So we'll move on. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Just a few questions that I think Adam probably will answer. Adam, I think you mentioned that you were meeting some sort of HUD sound requirement. You had done some modeling or testing of your design. Can you explain better what that is?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Felipe, who's on from Ingeberg Anderson, can provide more specifics, but with any development that's utilizing HUD funds, we don't have HUD funds on this development, but HUD has a standard. It's a stray cat calculation where it's a formula where you input the outdoor noise levels and you also input then what type of wall composition, insulation, patio doors, windows, everything that makes up that exterior component. And then the calculation spits out if exterior noise levels are X decibels, your wall will knock that down by Y decibels for an interior noise rating of Z decibels. And they look for that to be both below 42 decibels, which is their interior threshold. So Ingeberg Anderson put those calculations together based on proposed materials, and the wall setup with windows and patio doors is sufficient to bring that interior noise rating below the 42 decibels, which is the HUD kind of federal housing standard for maximum interior noise level that would be acceptable.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, now I have another question. If that's the case, do you anticipate doing any additional soundproofing based on the suggested staff condition that doesn't require it but strongly suggests it?
Yeah, so, and Felipe, maybe you can unmute Felipe as well, but I believe there were updates made to the wall composition and the windows and the patio doors being used in order to lower that interior noise volume. So in our mind, if we were at that acceptable HUD housing standard level, that would be an acceptable level. If there's something beyond that staff or the commission is looking for, we're certainly willing to look at that further and see if there's more we can do to lower the interior noise.
Okay.
Jesse, could you get Felipe on, please? Felipe, did you have anything to add to what Adam said?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, nothing in particular, just that we did take our initial wall construction and apply it to the STRATCAT, the sound transmission classification assessment tool by HUD. And that's right now we're getting acceptable readings, but we're, like Adam said, we're willing to look at anything that the city might suggest as additional measures.
Commissioner Heck, did you have anything you wanted to add or ask for?
I have some more questions, but I'll save most of them for later. Just one more on this topic, if I may. It's mentioned also in the staff report that if Bear were to pursue, I assume, affordable housing funds from the city or some other funding source, that then there might be a requirement for perhaps some more soundproofing. Do you have plans to seek city funding for this? I know that things can change and you might not be able to say definitively, but is that in the plan?
Yeah, when the housing was not through, or the response was not for the Affordable Housing Fund, it was tax incremental financing. We have had conversation with city staff on that. That will be coming through for review. We've been working with staff to get things in order with the plan and the assessor and with the affirmative housing requirements that go along with that.
But that's all WIDA. That's
no, tax incremental financing.
Oh, TIF. Okay,
TIF. Yes,
got
TIF.
it. I'm sorry.
It's located within the TID. There was a portion. The project plan was updated specific to this project, but it has not moved forward for formal approval yet.
Okay, thank you. I get it. I'll let somebody else have a chance.
Okay, I'm going to move to the Alder of the district. If you wish to speak now, Alder Burris, or wait until other questions are asked and answered. Alder?
Well, are we at the discussion part of this?
No,
we're still in public comments. Okay,
we're public comment questions.
Yeah, sure. I do have some questions, and then I want to make a comment if I can. So my question, first of all, is to real minor to the chair. Who are the first two speakers? I just wanted to clarify. Do they live in District 12? I didn't catch that. I'm sorry. That's just a technical question. Well, I would like to know that if I could.
Yeah. Angela Morgans lives in District 12, as does Nathan Morgans.
Yeah, those they're right around the corner.
Treater Prestine does.
I'm talking about the first two people that made statements.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I can tell you from what I see here.
Okay, I was looking at. I think it's Bennett is the first person's name. McIntosh, Bennett McIntosh, and then I didn't catch the other person's name.
Bennett McIntosh is in District 6.
District 6. Okay, and then I didn't catch the other person that came before Bennett McIntosh.
Treater Prestine.
Okay, what about after Bennett McIntosh?
Those were the late registrants, I believe, and I don't have that information.
Okay, that's fine. It'll be recorded, so I can go back and check that. So then I had a couple of questions about, and maybe staff can answer this. When was the presentation made at UDC again?
We're now at the public hearing, so this is
Okay.
questions of registrants. Do you have
Okay,
questions?
so I wanted to know if, well, I guess I can ask the developer this. Have they had any neighborhood engagement, or, what happened in the neighborhood meetings? I know Angela had talked about going to a meeting. I don't know if that was a neighborhood meeting. I wanted to ask the developer, what have they done to engage? What kind of meetings have they had with the neighborhood?
Adam?
Yeah, sure. And I think we talked with you older after the UDC meeting last. We have reached out direct to you to organize those, and the schedules did not align last week when we were trying to line up, but we have had no neighborhood meetings without you. We had been working through you to schedule anything, but as of yet, there has not been anything scheduled.
Okay, and then I also wanted to know, you said you got some comments from the Alder. Are you talking about comments from me? I gave you formal comments.
You made comments at the UDC meeting that was a couple weeks ago.
Okay, so that was the first time that you've ever connected with the neighborhood or myself about this project, correct?
Yes, we had reached out to you several times via email and phone calls, but had not connected until that meeting.
Okay, all right, excellent. The other thing is, and did you schedule any public meetings on your own? Did you reach out to the neighborhood? I know in the plan that the developers get participating in the development process. It's a checklist that you guys get. They strongly suggest that you do some pre-meetings, that you do go reach out to the interested parties, planning council, you open the lines of communication. What has been done to do that?
Yeah, our experience has been those are best coordinated through the Alder. So we had reached out to you via email and phone calls in order to reach out to those, but had not connected. So there were not meetings scheduled. Our prior developments done in Madison, it was always Alder led. So we had initiated communication that way.
Okay, and so you filed for your, and I've read through the materials, by the way, it's 300 pages of stuff that's supplemented that came in. I'm not sure the neighborhood knows all about the 300 pages that we're expected to read to make a decision. I don't know if everybody on the committee has read the 300 pages. Of course, it would take you 15 hours to read that. But I'm also wondering if you filed for, I just want to make sure you filed for this application for this project that's going to come into the neighborhood on April 6th. Is that correct? On election day?
I would need to go back to my records, and staff would probably have better records. I think initial submittals would have been, yes, quite some time ago.
Okay, and did you send emails out to the neighborhood associations or interested parties about within the neighborhood? Were you able to do that?
Again, all communication was to the addresses and phone numbers on file with the Alder.
Okay, and so I know you said you had difficulty reaching Colin as well. What is there anybody else that you reached out to about it? I guess I keep answering the same question, but I'm wondering, did you say to Colin, hey, we're not getting through? Can you connect us with somebody? I want to know what your engagement was beyond sending an email.
We did. We left voicemails. We sent emails. We had reached out, and I believe it was a neighborhood association email address. There was a business association. There's communication with Colin. I'm not sure if there was communication between Colin and others that we're not privy to, but those were our lines of communication. But we did not receive a response.
Okay, so the association didn't get back to you, and you said a business association got back to you?
No, I'm saying there was no response back from neighborhood association or the business association.
Okay, and I do apologize if I didn't get back to you. I did check my voicemail, so you did say you you did leave a voicemail, you know, and I checked. I haven't found it, but I'll continue to look on it for it. My next question is for the any of the registrants that live in the neighborhood. I'm wondering if they knew about the project and or if they have engaged in any kind of you know, neighborhood pre-meetings or meetings or engagement. Has anybody attended a meeting other than, I believe, Angela and Nathan? They'll have to speak for themselves. They attended the UDC, which is not a public hearing for the neighborhood. So if they could just answer that.
Okay, so we will go to Angela for that. Angela, could you answer the alder's question?
The first I had heard about this development, was through a postcard that we received in the mail, and the UDC was the first public hearing we've heard about this. Nathan is with me right now, Nathan Morgans.
Yeah, same.
And then I'm wondering, when did you guys get that postcard?
About a week before the meeting.
Okay, all right. And you haven't received anything else regarding it?
No.
Okay,
Just
and were
for
you
this
thinking that was a general, were you thinking that was a public meeting for the neighborhood, or what was your, were you unsure? What were you thinking?
We didn't know what it was, but we knew that it affected the property that's right next to ours, and we're very concerned about the trees. So we wanted to make sure that we put in our voice the first we heard about it.
Okay.
Did you have any further questions, Alder Burris?
No, can I make a statement?
You can, but I think it would probably be a little more appropriate after the questions and closing the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Mendez.
Thank you, Chair. This question is for the development team in regards to the parking. I'm not worried about the number of parking spaces you guys have proposed, this being the TOD overlay district and low income to workforce housing. I understand your rationale there. My question is in regards to the circulation in your surface parking lot with those two dead ends. Do you think you have enough parking space where you can possibly get rid of another 2 to 4 spaces to create more circulation through there? Especially if I didn't say a loading zone. This would help with people bringing in small U-Hauls or such like that, that they don't get stuck. You don't have some backup.
Sure, and this is Adam. Thank you for the question. This is something that got brought up at UDC as well. It's a little bit hard to tell in the site plans that were shown, but there is a bump out area that's meant as a loading zone. In order to get to that, it would be kind of a Y turn in order to go back into it. Our civil JSD and architect are reviewing those options that you just laid out of could we lose 2 parking spaces, and that would provide a circulation around the end. So it is something that's being reviewed, and it was something that I believe, Colin can correct me, something that would be part of UDC's final review as well. But the area that it's kind of immediate, if it's just to the right of the patio, you can see how there's a wider spot there, and it's sufficient space for like 2 moving trucks that would be able to sit there. But as you said, to get to that, you'd have to do kind of a Y-turn maneuver.
Yeah, and then if you're in that aisle, you're kind of stuck if they're side by side or far out. So I would highly recommend possibly cutting out those 2 in that center bay, give you a little bit of breathing room. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McCahill.
Thank you. I had similar types of questions for the development team. The first is for access to Ridgeway. I saw the transportation that engineering recommended sidewalks, and you said something about the trees being a problem. I guess my question is, did you hear from folks about preserving those trees? Because I know we heard that you're getting rid of some adjacent to that property on Melvin Court. So what's the impetus for preserving those trees there?
There are 2 sets of trees. So the set of trees that the neighbor was talking about just a minute ago is when you come in off of Melvin Court, there's this stretch there of parking that's a single loaded parking, and then the single family house is adjacent to that. that row of arborvitae, due to the excavation in that area, do have to be removed, and we made the commitment in the UDC meeting to replace those arborvitae. There's another string of them that are located on the end of the parking lot where those two dead ends are. And that it's difficult to tell from any of the materials provided, but there's a significant change in grade coming from Ridgeway down to where the parking area is. So in order to preserve those arborvitae, which was again a request in prior meetings at UDC, we wouldn't be able to do that by regrading that and providing a sidewalk that would go along Ridgeway. What we did provide were those two sidewalk outlets that go from the back corner of the building as well as from the patio area straight back to Ridgeway that would connect to the road. And then there's a sidewalk on the immediately on the other side of the street there. But in an effort, logistically, it's not possible to construct a sidewalk along our side of Ridgeway, and we'd also lose our arborvitae.
So just to clarify, the request was from UDC?
To save those arborvitae along that edge, correct?
Okay.
So, and to be clear, there are two sets that they requested to save. One we can, which is the area along Ridgeway. The other we cannot due to the grading, which is adjacent to the neighbor's house, but made a commitment to replace those. The grades do allow for replanting of trees in that area.
Okay, thanks. And then sort of, you've kind of answered this question already, but I was going to also raise the circulation question and ask why you wouldn't provide access to that parking lot on Ridgeway, which seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and I don't want to say something out. Colin, I believe that the request was not to provide an access onto Ridgeway and only to keep the access on Melvin Court. And this goes back many months, so I don't want to say that. I just want you to jump in on that one if you could.
I think we'll save that for staff questions.
Okay.
But thank you for that.
Yep, that's fine. One more question, actually, if it's okay. I saw the TDM, the Transportation Demand Management Plan, was included, which I was glad to see. So thank you to staff for that. And you include unbundling parking as one of the measures that you're going to go after. Curious about what you plan on charging and how you plan on handling visitors.
There are a couple of visitor spots that we intend to keep outside the front entrance where there are a handful of handicap stalls there. And then any other surface parking is just first come, first serve. Underground parking will be determined by our property management company. An estimate is in the $75 a month range.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner McCahill. Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you, Chair. I think most of my questions have been answered, so mine is very simple. During the presentation, there was a community room information provided, and sometimes it was referred as the community room. Sometimes they were reference to residence area. Is the community room for the community or just the residents?
It's a community room for the residents. There are two separate community spaces. And when I say community for the residential community, there's one that's located off of the patio off the back. And there's another one that we referred to as the lounge. I think the staff report referred to it as the lounge as well, which is on the front corner at East Wash and Melvin Court. There was a comment of adding more windows to that lounge space on the interior. So two different spaces, but both of those spaces reserved for residents of the development.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Adam, you mentioned you were going to replace the one set of arborvitae, and I think your neighbor was saying that there's a utility easement. So I'm wondering what species. I should have looked at the plans if it's indicated, but what species will you be replacing those with? And they apparently won't be able to be as large because of the easement. Are you aware of that?
I believe it's a telephone line easement that runs overhead through that area. And I think that was what was being referred to. Kevin is on from JSD. There was a type of arborvitae that was recommended at UDC that was fast growing. And I don't recall the name of it specifically, but Kevin may be able to assist. Kevin Yeska.
That would be great. It'd be nice to know that they were going to be somewhat substantial and that they'd fit there.
Is Kevin registered?
I am here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So
I'm not finding your name here.
should have been registered for item 11, 12, 13 as available to speak.
I think it was later, Chair Zellers.
Oh, okay. It was later added. Okay.
Yep, it's
Go
there.
ahead, Kevin.
All right. So yeah, the latest proposal that we're working on internally that may not be in the latest packet is to provide that row of arbs recommended at UDC. We've been studying this to put in some emerald arborvitae along that line, but at the current moment, we don't have a continuous line of arborvitae. We wanted to break that up with some taller ornamental grasses. We recognize that there are a few arborvitae on the neighbor's property that would remain. They are on their property, so we're respecting that and not touching that. In addition to a pretty large deciduous tree, it's a 48-inch caliper tree. So at those moments, that's where we would have taller ornamental grasses, but then the rest of it would be the emerald arborvitae. So
okay, and those grow to 25 feet or something like that.
They do get taller, yes. Those lines, will begin to compete at some point in time, and that is when the telephone company may or may not, as they've been doing today, hack at them, unfortunately, but they wouldn't cut them out completely just because of the vertical lines above.
Oh, I see. So they currently probably encroach into the easement.
That is correct. The arbs that are there today that we're replacing are essentially grown up to the top of that telephone line.
I see. Okay, thanks for the answers. That was my question.
Yep, no problem.
Are there any further questions for any of our registrants? Any further questions for any of the registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I'm going to close the public hearing. And then I'm looking for a motion in a second, and then we will loop to the alder for the district for the first discussion and comments. Is there a motion? Commissioner Mendez.
I have a question. Is this a chance for us to ask
Oh,
staff
sorry.
questions?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Questions of staff.
Thank you, Chair.
Questions of staff. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Did you have a question? You're muted.
I do. So I have a question. Do we still need final UDC approval on this one before it can finish its process through?
So in a lot of situations like this, a proposal will return to UDC after getting Plan Commission approval to get their final UDC approval. It's basically treated as one of the conditions of approval. So they would return there after they've made the necessary changes that UDC has requested.
So I'm asking, I might be asking too soon on this, but since there wasn't a chance for some public hearings, if we referred this later after UDC final approval for our final review, that potentially could give the alder an opportunity to coordinate neighborhood meetings during that time, correct? Would that be appropriate?
I think from a technical standpoint, that could work. I might ask I think it's uncommon. So I might ask Heather if
I think
that's
we've done
a
it
situation
before, so I just want to make sure we're not overstepping.
Yeah, I'd agree with Colin that it is within the purview of the Plan Commission to refer this item, but you would want to make really clear what you were referring with the expectation of, and it sounds like one of those things would be final UDC approval and hoping to provide a little bit more time for a neighborhood meeting. So if that's the motion, please be sure to make those things clear.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you, Commissioner Mendez. Alder Field.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if staff could speak to the question of sidewalks along the rear of the lot and then access from the parking lot at that point as well.
Yes, I can talk to that. So there's the line of Arbor Vitae along Ridgeway that is just onto the property. There's a major comment from traffic engineering for the extension of the sidewalk there that would necessarily remove those trees. If the Plan Commission decided that the Arbor Vitae needed to be kept and would not permit the installation of that sidewalk, the Plan Commission would need to strike that particular condition from the list of conditions of approval. Regarding the connection from the parking lot to Ridgeway, there is quite a bit of grade there. I think from a technical engineering standpoint, it would be very difficult to make that connection. And traffic engineering really was not, didn't see the need for there to be that connection anyway. And I think there would be some significant grading and site changes that would be required to make that work anyway.
Did you have any follow-up? No. Okay. Are there further questions of staff? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. This may be for Colin or Heather. If this were to be referred, I assume we'd need to negotiate with the development team about deadlines and find out what would happen if it were referred. It could be a month or two or something, and that I know can have an impact on funding streams, et cetera. Isn't that typically what we'd need to do?
Go ahead, Heather.
Sure. Great point, Commissioner Heck. I think that if the Commission would like to sort of reopen the public hearing and ask questions of the applicant, if you feel that a referral is likely, that would be a great idea, because yes, delays do have implications on various projects. Again, it's our understanding as staff that the applicant did attempt many times to reach out and get neighborhood meetings scheduled, as they indicated in their testimony this evening. And so, that may be a challenge moving forward as well that the Plan Commission might consider.
Thank you. That was my question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Alder Burris. Alder Burris, did you have questions of staff?
Yeah, just a second. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just a second, please. I'm going to come on. Just a minute, please. I'm working off of a phone, so it's like, all right, just a minute. 30 seconds. I can ask the questions without going in. So I know in the report, and so first of all, I want to say we disagree on the level of engagement. I talked to those guys after the meeting last time, and I don't want to get into the weeds about it. I don't want to fight with staff. I don't want to fight with them. If you're going to move into a neighborhood and do a project where you're going to get city money and have, you're going to change the neighborhood, I think no matter what, you should be able to engage. So I reject that. I have a thing on my email that says text me if I'm not getting back to you quick enough. Believe me, people text me. I don't think I got any text from you. All right, now I want to ask this question about when a condition is strongly suggested or strongly encouraged. What happens if I, as a developer, don't meet those and I ignore that. Where is the teeth in strongly encouraging and strongly suggested?
Colin or Heather, do you want to take that? Heather, I think I saw your hand up.
Sure. So to strongly encourage really acknowledges our limit as plan commissioners or the city in general. We're unable in this case to require any building code, anything that is over and above what the Wisconsin Building Code requires. And so, legally, we cannot require it. We can encourage it. And if the city were to fund or provide partial funding for the project, of course, we could encourage it in those cases. And so I think in this instance, staff is urging the commission to encourage, but certainly from a legal perspective, we may not require additional noise attenuation unless the city's funding the project. So I want to make that really clear.
Yeah, I'd like to circle back if I could just, you said if they applied for TIF or for the TIF funding, is that also strongly encouraged or suggested, or could we require it? I thought you said we'd still strongly encourage it. Is that a requirement or just suggestion?
Sure. So if the city is providing funding through TIF, through the Affordable Housing Fund, or any number of ways, this particular case is seeking TIF support, then we can require noise attenuation over and above the Wisconsin Building Code.
Did you have any further questions, Alder Burris?
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. Just a quick question for Colin. Talking again about the sidewalk on Ridgeway Avenue. As I'm looking at, I did go to the site, but I can't remember. I'm looking on Google now. Looks like the sidewalk is on the north side of Ridgeway and constructed probably recently, but is not on the south side or around roundabout. Is that correct? Like
yes,
the entire length, even past the property. So the houses or properties on Ridgeway.
It would dead end for the time being, but there are situations all over the city where we have to build those incrementally. When Ridgeway is reconstructed at some point in the future, that may be part of the project to install sidewalks at that time.
And if it was installed at a later date, that would be via the special assessment process for the owners.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Solheim. Are there further questions of staff? Further questions of staff? Alder Figueroa Cole.
So I'm having problems with the up and down of the hand. Staff, can you please, I was trying to take a look at the schedule for this particular item. What is the routing? And I don't want to run out of time trying to dig it. Can you tell me when it's going back to UDC and, what other stops does it have?
Yes. So if the proposal was approved by Plan Commission tonight, it would return to UDC at a date when the applicant resubmits their materials showing the changes. There is not a set date. It would really depend on the time it takes the applicant to turn their plans around.
Okay, so we don't really have a date for that. That could be enough time for a community meeting and invite them for that meeting to provide additional input.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I am now looking for a motion. Commissioner Heck.
I will start with a motion on agenda item number 11.
Yes, thank you.
I would move that the Plan Commission believes the standards are met to grant the demolition permit to demolish a car sales facility at 3100 East Washington Avenue.
Seconded by Alder Field. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Heck?
No, I don't think so. Not for this.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on this item, the demolition? Alder Burris, you wanted to comment on this motion, the demolition?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that, and I don't have an issue with the 13. I have an issue with the 12. I think it should get referred, but I'll speak on that when we come to that.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on the demolition motion? Seeing no raised hands, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion on number 11, the demolition passes unanimously. I am now looking for a motion on agenda item 12, Legistar 79332. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I'll move that the Plan Commission finds that the conditional use standards are met in the CCT district for a multifamily dwelling with greater than 60 units to allow the construction of a 5-story apartment building with 192 units at 3100 East Washington Avenue.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Mendez. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Heck?
Please. I realize this has been kind of a tough one primarily because of the F-35s, but there's also the East Washington noise issue. But I feel like Plan Commission has grappled pretty well with particularly the noise from East Washington as we've approved multiple residential developments along the Beltline. The F-35s, or airport noise, I'll call it, is somewhat of another matter, but from what I heard, I believe that the applicant is planning to go above and beyond what they need to do for sound mitigation. And I appreciate that they are not necessarily marketing these units to large families with a lot of kids. There certainly will be children in there, though. And but I think that they've gone above and beyond so far, and I hope they'll go further with noise mitigation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Alder Burris.
Yeah, so I am in support of the project. However, I believe that there needs to be a lot of community engagement because this has not, this has been something else for so long. And I think it's part of what our creed is. We don't want to set a precedent that says you can do an Enron and blame it on the alder, and then you can get it approved. And we know from other projects that when things get approved, then that we're going to shortcut back to this is, well, it's already been approved and it's going to cost us money. What I want to do is get people together on the front end, and talk about it.
Did you have anything further to say, Alder Burris? You cut out there.
Sorry. Yes, I would like it referred to a future date.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, now we can.
Yeah, so I would like to just refer it to meetings, give them time to talk to the very active neighborhood associations, and there's more than one, and the neighborhood, especially because I've heard back from there's 2 major apartment complexes that have stabilized the neighborhood for 10 years. I've known about the neighborhood 20 years because my mom lives there, or, rest in peace, she used to live there. I live right down the street. And, there's issues. It's going to change the sidewalk. Yeah, so these are under conditions number 1 and number 9. It's going to change the sidewalk. It's going to change the parking, the traffic, the F-35 noise level. Of course, we're going to have to deal with it. And I suppose if you don't live in the neighborhood, it's not an issue for you. And it's going to have an impact on the neighborhood. And I think that they can just take a minute so we don't pit the neighborhood against the developer. I understand both have a lot at stake. You're asking a lot of them. And I think that they need to be informed and they need to be asking questions. Matter of fact, if it was me, I'd probably engage more than one meeting, but we can at least do one meeting and don't blame it on the alder.
Thank you, Alder Burris. Commissioner Mendez.
Thank you, Chair. I had a question, probably kind of clarifying with Commissioner Heck. Are we leaving in the condition of having to have the sidewalk on the backside, or were we going to remove that one?
I meant to add subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report, but I'm certainly willing to entertain amendments related to that.
Thank you. I am not either way, but I think somebody else might be. But I do want to just make a statement that I think approving this makes sense since they have to go back to UDC. And it gives them ample opportunity to interact with the alder and the district to set up those neighborhood meetings. And then they can also do it on their timeline and not our forced timelines. I think us approving it makes sense. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. I support the motion. I was going to add in something similar where I do feel that, a lot of the things that neighbors may want to provide input on can still be addressed through UDC in terms of landscaping, circulation, some of those things. But in terms of the underlying zoning and the approvals for this, I do feel it is consistent with our plans. And also, I'm very happy to hear some of the discussion on sound mitigation. As soon as they mentioned Stray Cat, it made me feel a lot better because clearly they know what they are doing. So I am in support of this. I'd offer one maybe suggestion for the sidewalk is honestly, I obviously feel there needs to be sidewalk on that side at some point, whether it is with this or whether it makes sense to do it all at the same time. I'm somewhat indifferent. So perhaps something that the development team will work with staff to determine the appropriate time or timing or staging of that installation of sidewalk may be a way to compromise.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion or comments in regard to the motion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote. I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next, we need a motion on agenda item 13, Legistar 79337, regarding the certified survey map. Commissioner Mendez.
All right, I move that we forward the approved certified survey map for 3100 East Washington Avenue, Legistar 79337.
Seconded by Alder Field. Commissioner Mendez, did you wish to speak to your motion? No. Okay, any discussion from anybody? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next is agenda item 14, Legistar 79325, revised, 6302 Odana Road, District 19, consideration of a conditional use in the Suburban Employment District for a hotel and consideration of a conditional use pursuant to MGO Section 28.141(13) to reduce the requirement for an off-street loading space to allow an office building to be converted into a hotel with 15 rooms with no off-street loading. And Heather, could you just briefly give an overview of this, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair Sellers. So we have on an existing lot with an existing building, a conversion of a small office building to almost like an extended stay hotel. I think they're putting in a medium stay hotel with 15 rooms. This lies just within the Transit-Oriented Development area. The conditional use is for the hotel, and then the second conditional use, which I think is the main subject that we'll be discussing tonight, is that the applicant would like to forego the need for an off-street loading zone. And our traffic engineering colleagues have strongly recommended that the Plan Commission not grant that conditional use. They feel that a loading zone on the property itself, outside of the public right-of-way, is needed for a use like this to accommodate not necessarily large-scale hotel related loading, but for almost the residential use that this will be. The medium stay hotel might have deliveries, online purchases that are delivered to the site, food being delivered to the site, etc. And I think that they expressed concern that if the loading zone was not accommodated on the site, it might lead to some blocking of traffic, including bicycle traffic on Odana Road. And so I'm here trying to represent the Traffic Engineering Division and just, urging the Plan Commission to take their comments very seriously as you consider whether or not to grant the requested conditional use to forego the on-site loading zone on the property. Happy to try to answer questions if there are any after the public hearing. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. I'll open the public hearing. There is a registrant wishing to speak. Robert Lacor, Woodburn Drive, Madison, representing Burrell Design Associates. Robert, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm here to represent the project architect, Burrell Design Associates, and I'll present our project on behalf of the owner and developer. Next slide, please. The site's at 6302 Odana Road. You might be familiar with St. Vinny's and the Habitat store that's been put in there. We're right across from that. We're in District 19. Next slide, please. The original structure was built in 1978. It's got 3 levels, a partial exposure basement, and 2 stories above grade. Exterior materials are primarily clay brick, wood lap siding, and asphalt shingles. The building's currently vacant. Next slide, please. We propose to convert the building into a midterm stay apartment hotel of 30 days or less. There are 15 suites, 5 per floor. Each suite features a kitchen, a living area, a bedroom, and a bathroom. Guests will have access to standard hotel amenities through remote and digital concierge services. The exterior and the lot design was approved by Parktown Development Corporation on June 20th. Next slide, please. The existing building will remain. However, we will demolish the north and south entries and replace those. There'll be interior renovation, window replacement, and exterior material and finishes replacement. We propose 4 new primary exterior materials, a natural stone masonry below, and 3 variations of formed metal wall panels. Next slide, please. The principal siding featured on all 4 elevations is a wood look digitally printed metal siding. Next slide. There's horizontal accent siding, which is an exposed fastener corrugated metal panel. Next slide, please. Vertical panels are used at the balconies to provide contrast. Next slide, please. So there are 2 recommended conditions of approval in the staff report I'd like to address. The first is number 7 from Traffic Engineering. We negotiated this. They'd like a 8-foot wide terrace along the public sidewalk that would require us to demolish the existing sidewalk. What we've agreed to do with their cooperation, which I appreciate, is to dedicate a right-of-way so that in the future, when Odana Road is further developed along this stretch, we will replace the existing sidewalk, create the 8-foot terrace, and re-pour the sidewalk. You can see the existing sidewalk here in red, the new preferred 8-foot terrace sidewalk in the blue hatch. Next slide, please. There is a requirement, and we acknowledge this, that there be an off-street loading area, 10 foot by 35 foot with 14-foot high clearance. However, we asked the Plan Commission to consider that the hotel does not require deliveries or make shipments. The hotel services, such as any kind of concierge service or linens, etc., will be using a standard parking space in a simple van or car. The red truck shown here represents a standard parcel delivery truck, such as you would get from Amazon or FedEx. They can utilize the same space and turning movements as the dumpster that's going to be removing the garbage. So that's what we're asking you to consider as a conditional use to reduce the number of off-street loading spaces from 1 to 0. Next slide. Thank you for your time. I'm available to answer questions about the project in general and the architecture. Brian, who represents the civil engineer, should also be available to answer questions about the site redevelopment.
Thank you, Robert. That doesn't conclude your time. The next registrant is Brian Bolio, not wishing to speak, but available to answer questions. Are there questions for either of our registrants? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. This is for the development team, I guess. Can you explain again your with regard to the loading zone? You're saying that a FedEx truck, for instance, could use one of the standard parking places rather than requiring a loading zone. And if that's the case, how many parking spaces and how many units will you have? It's 15 units, but how many parking spaces?
There's 18 parking spaces, I believe. And no, you may have misunderstood or I may have misspoke. I'm not saying that a standard parcel delivery truck can use a standard stall. That certainly isn't the case. A standard delivery truck, like a FedEx truck or Amazon truck, is 23 feet long, 8 to 8.5 feet wide. What I'm saying is they could use the striped off area that the dumpster truck would normally use. And the turning movements for both those vehicles are very similar. In fact, the turning movements for the delivery truck are less.
I see. So you're, in a sense, relying on the drivers to utilize that area by the dumpsters and using those same turning movements.
Yeah, quite frankly, they're not even going to do that. I think we know that the reality is they're going to pull up to the front entry. They're going to jump out of their truck. They're going to deliver the package, jump back in the truck, turn around in the dumpster area in a Y turn and be on their way. You know, that's just kind of the way they work. They're in a hurry. So we feel that dedicating an additional off-street parking spot will be underutilized.
Thank you. That was my thought when you were describing that, or when I was describing that scenario too, that they kind of do whatever they want to do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Heck. Any other questions for either of our registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I'll close the public hearing. Questions of staff? Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you, Chair. So for staff, can you go over again the concerns about the parking area?
Sure. So this is a concern from our traffic engineering colleagues related to the need for a loading zone. Their concern is that if the development does not provide a dedicated loading zone, delivery trucks like the one just discussed may end up in Odana Road and block bicycle traffic and perhaps automobile traffic in Odana Road. And so traffic engineering is not able to support this particular conditional use request. I think that all agencies do generally support the conversion of the office to a hotel use, but are urging the Plan Commission to approve the hotel as a conditional use and to place on file the requested relief from the requirement for the loading zone. Unable to find that the conditional use standards are met for that request.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate that feedback. Thanks.
Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. And just one clarification. It looked like in the amended staff report that staff was comfortable with the edit to the sidewalk dedication, because I see that, but so that was acceptable,
Yes.
but still not the, okay, great.
That's right. Traffic engineering and engineering staff did work with the applicant to agree that, staging that execution of the new sidewalk and terrace for later, saving that for later was amenable. So really the Plan Commission's looking at the addendum as the updated list of conditions that staff is recommending. But I think it needs to be clear that our staff is recommending that the Plan Commission clarify that one of the conditional use requests is approved and the other we're suggesting that the Plan Commission should place on file. And that's the loading zone request.
Thank you, Heather. Commissioner Mendez.
Thank you, Chair. Heather, so if they're gonna utilize the hash area with the dumpsters and the recycling, would that not satisfy kind of that intent, or do we still want them to add a separate or identify a separate individual stall?
Great question. So our traffic engineering colleagues believe that the identification of a dedicated loading zone, so a separate space for the on-site loading, be identified.
Could they potentially sign that hashed area as loading and unloading as well?
I must admit that I shouldn't answer that question with certainty. I do know from talking with Tim Parks, who reviewed this proposal, that there is adequate space, certainly, on the site to dedicate a new loading zone. I do think it will probably impact the number of parking stalls. And they may be able to utilize some of the hashed area that you mentioned near the dumpster as part of that loading space. They would need to work with traffic engineering staff to meet the condition.
So, well, since this is a private lot, if they're double utilizing that space, I'm just confused. Like if they're providing it as available to their users for loading and unloading, dedicated for that, honestly, when there's not a waste recycling truck there, that would, to me, that kind of fulfills that intent. If they weren't doing anything, then I would agree putting it on file. But it seems like they're trying not to get rid of parking, but they're also trying to meet halfway.
Yeah, I think if the Plan Commission wants to get that message across to our colleagues in traffic engineering, you could say maybe something like the applicant may work with traffic engineering staff to explore ways to count space near the dumpster for that loading. But I think we really do need to leave it up to the professional expertise of our traffic engineering colleagues. Certainly not to me.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Spencer.
Thank you, Chair. Just curious, Heather or other staff, if there have been issues with obstructing the bike lane on Odana Road. I'll admit that I haven't seen, much parking on the bike lane in Odana Road, but I have seen trucks parked in the middle of Odana Road, like in the left, what's now the left turn lane. I do see some nodding from Commissioner Shepherd. Maybe you were driving on the same day on Odana Road. I've seen so I don't know if those lots are like really tight or if there was just a lot of deliveries, that week. Are there issues with parking on the bike lane there? I'm just being curious.
It's a great question. I think, I don't know whether traffic engineering is seeing those occur today, but as the Odana area continues to evolve quickly, we're going to see the filling in of a lot of surface parking and intensification of uses in that area that could start to spill out on the public right of way and really impede that bike lane, the bicycle traffic there. And so it's important to try to find that balance and to accommodate enough still on the private property. There haven't been a whole lot of problems doing that along Odana because the parking areas and circulation areas today are so large. We do anticipate that will continue to evolve as we see more intensive redevelopment in this area. So we want to protect that public right of way and particularly the bike lane.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Chair, and would it be appropriate to reopen the public hearing to ask the applicant what they think about using the garbage and recycling space in a dual purpose as a loading zone too?
With the agreement of commissioners, is that? Yeah, okay. I will reopen the public hearing and ask that question of Robert.
Robert, you heard the question, I assume, but I'll also tell you partially why I'm asking is because I know in my condo building, for instance, if the access to the garbage and recycling is not available at a particular time, they will leave and you will not get your garbage and recycling picked up a company like Waste Management. So I wondered what you thought about that possibility.
Robert?
Okay, I apologize. My microphone had been turned off. Thank you, Commissioner Heck. I don't know what the waste recycling schedule will be. That's to be determined. Certainly, your observation that if there's a delivery vehicle or any other kind of obstruction there at the time when the dumpster truck comes, yeah, your garbage is not getting picked up. I acknowledge that. I also acknowledge that, as Heather mentioned, yeah, we can accommodate an off-street space somewhere on this lot. Our argument or our preference is that we reserve that space for other uses because we feel the off-street loading use is going to be so occasional and underutilized that it doesn't make sense. We have on the back side of this site where the dumpster is a outdoor equipment shed. It's for landscaping use, lawn care use, general storage. If we need to dedicate that area instead to an off-street loading area, it moves that shed over to an area that we were hoping to use for snow when we have to clear the parking lot. Because frankly, with the tree line along the east and northeast portions of this property, snow storage in the winter months is going to be a challenge. So there's a lot of things that went into our decision. But the answer to your question is, yeah. Could it happen that we don't get garbage picked up? Sure. I guess the commission just kind of needs to balance that against our contention that any off-street loading zone, while technically feasible, will be grossly underutilized.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions of the registrants while we have the public hearing reopened? Seeing no raised hands, I'll close the public hearing. Any further questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, it's time for a motion. Is there a motion? Alder Figueroa Cole.
I kind of have emotion, but it's not a pretty format like you guys said. But so I throw my comments out there, and someone can formulate it for me. I appreciate it. So I think we need to prioritize the work done in O'Donnell Road right now, all the pedestrian bike lanes and things that are in there. So I would like to have a motion to approve this, to adopt it, with the recommendation for the person to go back to transportation and try to figure out a way that they can manage the situation with the loading zone. But I really would like to stay away. I mean, I agree with transportation. We shouldn't put any additional stress on O'Donnell Road. I don't know if you guys have been on that road lately. Well, some of you have, but the changes there continue to happen. It's still kind of new for people, and it's really different than what it used to be. And I just don't. I don't know. I think we should definitely think on the future and maintain the prioritization of the bike lane and the pedestrian use.
Okay,
So hold me here. That's what I want to say.
What I'm hearing is that you are rejecting their request to get rid of the need for the off-street loading. Am I interpreting? Okay. So to place essentially on file without prejudice so that they can then go ahead and work with traffic engineering.
Sure.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Field. Is there further? Did you wish to speak any further to your motion?
I think I said what I needed to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Heck.
Thanks. I just wanted to quickly say that I'll be supporting this motion. I do hope that they can find a solution that by working with traffic engineering, but I'll also add that as a cyclist, every day I encounter delivery vehicles multiple times in bike lanes, and I do think we need to do whatever we can to avoid that.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Heather.
Yeah, just a quick clarifying question. Does the motion include approval of the main request to convert the office building into the medium stay hotel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
No.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Then we are on to business by members. Any business by members? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Sorry to raise my hand so many times, but I will be absent from Plan Commission on October 30th.
And Commissioner McCahill.
Thanks. It seems highly likely that I will be absent October 30th and November 13th. I will confirm later.
October 30th and November 13th, did you say?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing no raised hands, we will move on to the secretary's report.
All right, thank you again. First, I'll mention that at the last Common Council meeting, the council did hear an appeal of the Plan Commission's decision on the animal daycare facility on Junction Road. And ultimately, the Plan Commission decision was upheld by the council after a long discussion. At our council meeting tomorrow evening, the council will be hearing another appeal from the applicant of the car wash facility at 3913 Lean Road. And that will report back on the council's action on that appeal at your next meeting. Looking forward to the meeting of October 30th. several significant items. I'll mention a few here. The Madison Yards project on Sheboygan Avenue. This is a 5-story hotel project, 145 room hotel. And then on the far west side, the University Research Park Pioneer plat on the far west side is getting a lot of reconfiguration in a replat of that area. So we'll bring that to you at the October 30th meeting. There is a zoning text amendment related to the location of alcohol establishments with various licenses that our colleagues in zoning will be present to lead the discussion of. And then finally, we may see the return of the 131 West Wilson lighting that was referred at your last meeting. And then on November 13th, the few items I'll mention, a major redevelopment project on West Gorham, West Johnson, and North Broome Street, involving the demolition of several buildings for construction of a new 14-story, 459-unit apartment building. This is a student-oriented apartment building project. And then out on Lean Road on the far east side, a new plat, East Meadow Estates, with a variety of single-family and multifamily residential lots. And finally, I'll mention on the far west side, Bear Claw Way in the Paragon Place subdivision, 2 new buildings totaling about 220 new units will be before you as conditional uses on November 13th. That is where I'll leave it for this evening. Thanks so much, everyone. See you soon.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Okay, moving on then. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Commissioner Solheim, seconded by Commissioner Mendez. And we will come to a vote. I'll assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, I will see you all on October 30th. Thank you all very much. Take care.